It's Ash and Jack here again from Fitness Lab, and what I'm going to talk to you about today is really making sure you focus on your lat muscle whilst you're doing a row. Now, we're going to use a single arm cable row seated on the floor today for this example, but the tips and tricks that we're going to take you through today can apply to any rowing variation that you may have in your program. A common mistake or imperfection in doing the rowing movement is utilizing too much of the shoulder joint and not enough of the muscle you want to target, which is this big lat muscle down here. So I'm going to use Ash just to show this first bit, which is kind of a common mistake we see with rows in the gym. So if I have him set up, and if you just straighten your left leg, just so we can make sure we see everything. Now, what most people end up doing is pulling through this area here and end up scrunching up the upper trap in here and not allowing the elbow to do the fluid movement which I want it to do, which I'm going to show in a second. The issue with doing this movement up here is we use a little bit of rear delt, but we're using a lot of upper trap. And so if you feel when you're doing rows, you complain of upper neck tightness and the shoulder joint doing a lot of the work, that's because we're probably in this sort of pattern. It's exaggerated, but it's highlighting the issues. What we want to focus on is this big lat muscle down here. So how are we going to do that? I'm just going to change Ash's setup slightly so that he's sat a little bit more onto his coccyx here. So if you just shift your position and then sit up a little bit taller for me, that's perfect. Now, he's already done it, so I'm asking him to bend his knees, which is perfect, just gives him a better base of support. Now, the first thing we see a lot of people do is not utilizing the movement in the shoulder blade. Now, there's a classic cue, keep your shoulder blades back and down. Yes, correct for some things, but for a lot of the time, we don't mind that the shoulder blade wraps around the rib cage and comes forward. It's good as what it's supposed to do. So, the first thing is you want to maximize the length of the lat muscle. It starts here and wraps around and ends up at the top of the shoulder here. So from point A to point B, we want to make that as long as possible. So Ash is doing it exactly here, so he's allowed the rib cage to wrap around, the shoulder blade to wrap around the rib cage here to get maximum length from A to B. We can see that muscle now as long as it can be. Now, he's going to lead from the elbow and think about scooping down towards his hip. And now we've taken B to be as short and as close to A as we possibly can. So that muscle has shortened and contracted. That's exactly what we want. And Ash has done it naturally for me here. He's gone long and then he's going to come back in again with that scoop, but then you can see he's ever so slightly leaning down into his hip. Brett, if you come this side for me, you can see it better from behind. So I'm going to ask Ash to do one more rep. So he's going to reach that shoulder blade around his rib cage, and then we're going to shorten this muscle, and he's going to slightly lean over to the left. We're crunching that muscle short there. Okay, can you see the difference there between the first couple of reps where it was all shoulder, and now this is really targeting the lat here? Again, as I said, this can be applied to all of your rows, TRX row, barbell row. If you think about that scooping action, getting the elbow low towards your hips, not leading with the shoulder and upper traps, you can see, Ash does one more rep. The distance between his shoulder and ear here is far greater than it was with the first few rows. Here we're really targeting the lat, so you're going to get the most benefit from this rowing exercise.